Great. So now that we have our first React component, let's go ahead and render this component. Now, before I do that, I want to mention, I don't think I mentioned it, but whenever we create a component using the function, the name of the function must begin with a capital letter, an uppercase letter. So if you did something like this, then it would not work. Okay, it always has to be a capital letter. Okay, that's something to keep in mind. That's what React expects, that the function names must begin with uppercase. Okay, so now let's go ahead and render this or show this component on our browser. So let's look at index.html. Okay, and so notice it's a basic empty HTML file. Let me change the title. All right, and you notice that we have a script tag that is linked, okay, called main.js. All right, so that's something to keep in mind. And then of course there's one single div, and it has an ID of root. It has an ID of root. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to SRC, and inside SRC I will create a new file and I will give it the name main.jsx. all right, and that should correspond to this name right here. All right, good. Now what I want to do is to tell React that this div will be the parent container. So my component should be displayed in between this div tag. Okay, that's all I'm doing. Place my component in between this div tag, which has an ID of root. All right, good. So the first thing I need to do is to import my libraries. Okay, so I'm going to say import. Okay, and the first one is called, so I'm going to call it React. And it's from the React library. Okay, now where are these libraries specified? If you come back here to package.json, you'll notice that I have React and I have React DOM. These are two libraries that I will be using. Okay, so I imported React. Let's import the other one, which I'm going to call React DOM. That's the name I'm going to give it. All right, and this is coming from the React DOM /client. All right. Okay, so I have the libraries specified. This first one allows me to work with components, to create components, to embed components. And this second one allows me to render those components onto the browser. So we need both. Now, next thing I'm going to do is to actually import the component that I will be referring to. I'm going to call it app. And of course, it is coming from this directory. All right, app.jsx. Okay. All right. So I have my libraries. I have the component that I'm going to refer to. All right. And so now let me go ahead and set up the actual process. So the first thing I need to do is to actually target this div right here on line 10. All right, so I'm going to call that EL for short. Okay, and I'm going to use our trusty document dot get element by ID, and I'm going to simply pass in root. All right, great. So I have my element. Okay, I have my div that I am referring to as EL. And so what I need to do now is to create the root structure, right, that React will use to sort of control my application. Right, so think of it as a root data structure. Everything else will build up or hang from this root. Okay, so React DOM. Notice I'm using React DOM and not React. All right. Create root. And I'm going to have EL here. Okay. So once I have that in place, all I have to do now is to say root and then call the render method. And the render method expects a React node, right? In other words, a component. And so I'm going to say, I want you to render my app component. Now, whenever you refer to a component, we specify it this way. Okay, specify it this way. All right, so open angle brace, the name of the component, a space, and then a / and closing angle brace. And that's it. That's all we need to worry about. Obviously, for this particular example, I don't need the React library per se. All right. All right. So we're good. All right. So I'm going to comment out this for now. And so what I'm going to do, all right. All right. So let's try again. Main.jsx. Yes, doesn't exist, but we have it right here. Okay. So let me go back here and let me refresh my page. All right. And so notice that I get UB right here. Okay. So we come back here. And of course, notice that my Vite, the build system, is not complaining anymore. All right, great. So again, let's talk about it. When you want to render your component, you need to provide the relevant libraries. For now, all I need is React DOM, since that's what I'm referring to here. All right. And then I import the components, the component that I'm going to use. I get a handle to the root element, the root div. Then I create a root structure, and then I use that root structure to render my component. All right, that's it. That's all we need to do. And as you saw, we have a nicely shown application. Now, let's say, all right, I come back here, and instead of only showing UB, I want to show maybe a paragraph. Right? So let's see if I can do that. Let's say I come down here and I say P and hello world. Okay, I save that. Now it's giving me an error. It's saying that JSX must have only one parent. Okay, what happens if I put parenthesis around? Alright, it's still complaining. Okay, so how do I fix this? Well, whenever I want to fix this, then I need to basically use a div. Okay, alright. And what the div allows me to do is to specify more than one element, more than one HTML element. And you notice something which is very important. Visual Studio Code formatted the content for me, and then because they are on multiple lines, it put a pair of parentheses. Okay, so I could have done this, right? Backspace, backspace, backspace. Okay, that works. However, it's hard to read, but it's on one line, and because it's on one line, you don't need parentheses. Now if I save, it will auto format and it will put them on multiple lines, and so whenever you have multiple lines, you must enclose them with parentheses. Okay, so if I save this and I go back here, you notice that I have the H1 and I have the P tag. All right, so that's it for now. Again, this is a very basic component. However, I want you to understand the steps before we start adding on more functionality and learning more concepts. So again, step one, you create your component and then you export it. Okay. And in step two, okay, we want to be able to actually render that component. And to render the component, we use React DOM, right? We use this library to render the component. Now, as you'll see later on, that React library will come in very handy because there's a lot of functionality that is in there that we need to use when creating components. Okay, so don't think that that React library is not useful. It's extremely useful, and you'll see that when you start creating more sophisticated components. Good. So for this particular example, all we had to use was the React DOM library, because that allows us to actually render the component, to show the component on the browser or in the browser. Okay, so those are the steps. I hope that made sense. I encourage you to go ahead and replicate this component, and then of course go ahead and create your own component. All right, again, we export the component because inside main we want to import it. Wonderful. I'll see you in the next video.